The awareness that exists before birth. Part 1. A sacred journey into what remains when everything else disappears. Opening transmission. Before the first breath, before the opening of the eyes, before the body, the heartbeat, the name, the form. There is something already here, something that cannot be touched, cannot be named, and yet it is closer than all that we claim as me. This is the awareness that exists before birth, and it is still here, quiet, watching, waiting for us to remember. Let us now descend into that stillness together, fully, gently, deeply, without fear, without effort, without identity. One, a glimpse beneath the surface of mind. What if the self you call you was never born? What if awareness, pure and spacious, has always been here, even before your first moment as a human being? This is not a concept to believe. It is a truth to be directly remembered. When you sit quietly, when all thoughts fade, there is something that remains. It is not your personality. It is not your gender, your memories, or your voice. It is simply awareness, silent, receptive, unmoved. This awareness has no story, and yet it perceives all stories. It was here before the womb, and it will be here after the body returns to dust. 2. The unborn knowing. Science can describe the forming of a fetus. Biology can map the organs, the cells, the brain. But it cannot explain the silent presence that begins to look through those eyes before language arrives, before identity develops. That presence is not learned. It is not created by genetics or culture. It simply is. This is the unborn awareness. It has no beginning. It does not evolve. It does not need improvement. It only waits to be recognized, to be re-entered, not by striving, but by surrender. 3. How it feels to return to what you never left. Falling back into pre-birth awareness is not a dramatic spiritual event. It is not a vision, not a light show. It is a quiet undoing. Imagine floating in a vast ocean of stillness, where nothing needs to be achieved, nothing needs to be said. There is no one here to perform or impress, and yet something is aware of it all. This awareness has no age, no face, no timeline, and as you rest more deeply into it, you feel no fear, no grasping, only a profound peace, a deep exhale, the feeling of being home. 4. You are not the body, but you are in it temporarily. From the moment of birth, our awareness becomes entangled with form. We learn to identify as the body, the child, the name, the role, and with each layer of identity, the pure awareness retreats into the background. Not because it has gone anywhere, but because we've placed attention on the temporary. You are not the voice in your head. You are the listener behind it. You are not the body that changes. You are the witness of change. To rediscover this is not to deny the body, but to hold it with gentleness, knowing it is not who you are, but what you temporarily inhabit. 5. Memory is not your origin. Most people assume their life began with memory, with childhood, with the first remembered experience. But memory is just a string of images, a collection of impressions appearing within something far vaster. That vastness is what allows memory to even exist, and it is still here now, holding all your thoughts, emotions, and memories like clouds passing through a sky that never moves. To realize this is to step out of time, out of the false belief that your essence began at birth. 6. The threshold between birth and being. There is a sacred moment, unmeasured by science or clock, when the awareness that has no name meets the body that has just formed. This moment is not spoken of in modern psychology, but it is known to mystics, to those who have touched the veil. It is a moment of meeting, a gentle merging of the infinite with the finite, of the eternal with the temporary. And yet, Despite entering form, awareness never changes. It simply adapts, watches, learns the language of form while never becoming it. 7. The voice before words. If you go far enough back in silence, you'll find a kind of knowing that exists before language, before thought, before concept. This knowing cannot be spoken because it was never made of words. It is the still presence that makes words possible, but it is not made of them. When you meditate deeply, when thoughts finally fall away, this voice can be felt, not heard, felt. It is the quiet recognition. I exist, even without a name, even without history, even without body. This is the awareness that exists before birth. 8. The mind can't grasp it, but you can fall into it. Trying to understand this awareness with your thinking mind is like trying to hold the ocean in a teacup. It overflows, it cannot be contained, but you don't need to understand it, you only need to recognize it. When all doing stops, when there is no more seeking, no more trying to awaken, you may find yourself falling, not downward but inward, into a silent, unshakable presence that feels more real than anything you've ever called me. 9. The inner silence is already aware. Close your eyes for a moment. Do not seek visions. Do not chase mantras. Just notice what remains when you stop chasing. Notice that something is still here, watching, noticing, being. This something is not separate from you. It is you, not the you who has a name or story, but the you who has always been here, even before birth, even before memory. 10. Why this remembrance matters. You may ask, why does any of this matter? Why explore something before time, before identity? Because unless you know what you truly are, you will mistake yourself for what you are not. You will become trapped in story, in form, in fear. But when you remember that you are awareness itself, that you existed before the body, before the breath, then you are no longer afraid to let go. You are no longer afraid of death or loss or failure, because you remember you cannot be harmed, you cannot end, you cannot disappear. You are what holds all things, and yet is held by none. Mystical reflection. Pause now, and feel into what is not breathing, what has no form, no name, yet is always awake. It was not created, it cannot be destroyed, it does not need validation, it is simply aware. When you rest in this, even for a breath, you return to the source, to the original awareness, the eternal witness, the stillness that is never born and never dies, the awareness that exists before birth. Part 2. Releasing the illusion of beginnings and endings. We have been taught that life begins at birth and ends at death, that the timeline of self is a line with a clear start and finish. But when you fall into the silent presence that existed before the womb, that belief collapses. You begin to see that beginnings and endings only apply to form, to bodies, to stories, to experiences, but not to awareness. Awareness does not enter or leave. It simply shines through one form and then another, through silence, through sound, through breath, through stillness. This realization is not a metaphor. It is not an idea to contemplate. It is a shift in perception, where you begin to feel, even without proof, that the real you has never been bound by time, and therefore cannot be destroyed by it. The body as a temporary temple. When this awareness first touched your forming body, it was not born. It entered, like wind entering a flute, like sunlight falling into a bowl of water. The awareness animates the body, but it is not the body. To remember this is to see your flesh as sacred, not as a permanent identity, but as a temple that houses the eternal, a temple that will one day return to the earth. but whose resident never arrived and never leaves. You can care for this body, love it, nourish it, walk it gently through life, but never mistake it for the whole of who you are. You are the sacred guest within, quiet, watching, aware. 13. Resting in the awareness that was always here. Try now, even as you listen, to soften the identity that is constantly doing. Set it down. Let go of all the memories, names, roles, and achievements for a moment, and ask what remains when all of that is set aside. What is still here? It is not blankness. It is not a void. It is a vivid, radiant stillness, one that has no opinion, no preference, no fear, only presence. You do not have to build this presence. You do not have to activate or create it. You only have to notice it. It was always here, waiting just behind the veil of thought, unmoved, unimpressed, untroubled, unborn. 14. Falling into the space between thoughts. There is a moment, a sacred gap between the end of one thought and the beginning of another. In that gap, if you are still enough, you can feel it, the vast, formless awareness that has no past, no future, only now. This is the space where identity disappears, where the watcher becomes visible, not as a form or a figure, but as pure being. This gap cannot be held, cannot be forced. It must be entered like a lover's breath, softly, silently, with reverence. The more you rest here, the more you come to realize that this space was never after birth, it was before. 15. Consciousness without a story. Imagine existing but having no memory, no history, no language, no culture, only a quiet, radiant presence. This is not imagination. This is the truth of what you are. Every story you tell about yourself is like a garment. It can be put on and taken off, but the one who sees the garment, that one has no story. That one is free. This freedom does not mean you will abandon your life or lose your sense of self. It means you will no longer be trapped in it. You will see your life as a play, your thoughts as clouds, your story as a wave arising in a sea that never moves. 16. The wisdom of the womb. Before you could speak, before you could walk, there was awareness alive in the womb, listening, sensing, being. This awareness was not shaped by experience. It was not crafted by culture or trauma. It was simply awake. Some mystics say the deepest meditation is not learned. It is remembered. It is the return to that first awareness, the one that did not need words, that did not need self-definition, the one that was and is. The gift of unknowing. To rest in the awareness before birth is to let go of needing to know, to release the addiction to explanation, to no longer be afraid of the mystery. This kind of unknowing is not ignorance. It is sacred humility. It is the understanding that what you are is beyond the mind's grasp. And that's not a failure. It's freedom. You don't need to define yourself anymore. You don't need to solve yourself. You only need to rest in the felt sense of being. Here, now, always. 18. That which cannot be touched. There is a part of you that cannot be harmed, that cannot be improved, that cannot be lost. It has never aged, never been wounded, never feared. It is not in your bones, not in your thoughts, not even in your soul. It is awareness itself. And when you return to it, you return to a silence that is vast beyond comprehension, tender beyond naming. 19. Why the mystic smiles in silence. Why does the mystic withdraw from noise? Why do they sit for hours unmoving? Why do they say so little and yet radiate peace? Because they have touched this awareness, the one that was never born. They have felt the joy of nothingness, the love that needs no object, the freedom of not being anyone. And in that silence, They remember what the world forgets, that we are not here to become something. We are here to remember that we already are. 20. Returning to the unborn light within. At the end of this journey, we do not arrive at something new. We return to something ancient, to the light that shone before your eyes opened, to the presence that watched your first heartbeat, to the spaciousness that received your first breath. This light is not distant. It is never distant. It is never gone. It is only waiting now. Within, it waits with perfect patience for you to stop seeking and simply remember final contemplation. There is something in you that was never touched by the womb, that has no shape, no sound, no form, and yet it is the ground of all things. When you rest in it, you do not become less human. You become more fully what you always were. Presence, stillness, truth. This is the awareness that exists before birth, and it is the same awareness that will remain long after the final breath, untouched, unbroken, forever. If this transmission stirred something ancient within you, a silence you cannot name, then let it echo in your life beyond this moment. Subscribe to the channel to receive more transmissions from this sacred library in the making. Each episode is part of a living book, a quiet map. For those who remember the way inward, if this brought you stillness, share it gently with someone ready to return to what they are, beyond the story, beyond the surface. And if you're walking this path slowly, sincerely, let this space be a companion, a temple of soundless truth hidden in plain sight. Thank you for listening. May the awareness that existed before your first breath remain the place you return to again and again. Next transmission preview. In the next offering, we will gently uncover how to meditate past the mind's last layer, a direct passage beyond thought, effort, and even witnessing itself, into the pure ground where stillness no longer watches, it simply is.